The effect of the Jews on world history is so obvious that only a fool or an Oriental who's never heard of the God of Abraham could say they never knew about it. What happened here?
He can't. He's never heard of the God of Abraham. What the fuck, bro?
Boy, we've got to the video you folks have been waiting a while for. I did something like over 3,000 pages of research for these 2 videos on Jewish civilization, so please have some gratitude. I've been trying to make a list of the most accomplished ethnicities in history. I don't really want to rank them, since I don't think that's how reality really works. You can't really enumerate reality, and once you try, you lose touch with the living, beautiful spirit that is human life and existence. However, on my list, I have the Anglo-Saxons, Chinese, Italians, Greeks, Germans, and the Jews, just to name a handful of obvious choices, as well as a few other ethnicities I didn't name there. Once you combine them with their ethnic diasporas, the Anglo-
I don't know if I have anything to say. Also, character reveal. This is my person, right? If I end up playing, I gotta it set up. So I was
Hold on. No, she's like right here. Hi. My name's Melonie, and I am a junior Cub Scout. I'm extremely nervous. Extremely nervous about this, and I have never been on a plane before, and I hope everything goes correctly. Because 2 years ago, I had an accident at a pool hall, which I'd never been to a pool hall before, and it... Look, all I gotta say is the pool hall incident left me permanently disfigured, and I lost an eye, and I just can't lose another eye. Because I'll be blind. Anyway, my name's Melonie, and I'm a junior 2 Scout, and I have 2 merit badges, and I got this hat as a souvenir, and I like it, and I hope you like it too. And if you don't like it, keep that thought to yourself. Please don't take that as an invitation to insult my headwear, if you don't mind. Thank you. And I have little shoes, and that's it. And I'm gonna go climb a mountain, I guess. I don't know. I don't really want to do that. I kind of just wanted to go to Philadelphia to see an Eagles game, which I know is really dangerous, and I'm very concerned about my one eye, but I still, I was very excited for it, and I hope nothing happens, over there. So, that's that.
I want to do a character. I want to do fucking roleplay in these so fucking bad. It just seems like the most fun thing to do. Oh my god. Melonie, you crazy.
Thanks, but please don't look at the mirror while my voice is here, because it's very jarring to hear. Well, you just don't sound like me, okay? So if you just, look away, and then you can...
Look away, and then I can...
No, stop doing that! Look away, and then you can use my voice, or your voice. Please, don't do that again.
I'm sorry, okay? Oh my god. You guys might get introduced to a tradition in my house of me doing characters. Why does this keep happening when the thing is... There we go. Do it easy. No, I should do peek. Oh wait, what the fuck? Sometimes the cursor disappears when I'm streaming. I don't know why that happens. I've got to... Tulpa pink girlfriend. Oh gosh, we're supposed to... Are we supposed to...
Saxons, Germans, and Italians each have over 100 million people around the world today. The Greeks used to rule the known world, and hell, There's over 1 billion Chinese today. That being said, when you're looking at the Jews, you're seeing a population that's only a little bit more than 15 million people today combined around the world. For a frame of reference, my home state of Pennsylvania has 13 million people. There's a joke that Finland could hypothetically not exist, since the standard deviation for population numbers the UN uses, due to places like Africa or Asia, is large enough that statistically, as a sort of joke, the entire population of Finland is beneath that number. It's the same thing with the Jews. If an alien were to look at this, they'd be in complete shock. How could this tiny group of people spread around the world and break the world over multiple times again and again?
Oh shit.
However, for the inhabitants of this earth, the effect of the Jews on world history is so obvious that only a fool or an Oriental who's never heard of the God of Abraham could say they never knew about it. What happened here?
He can't. He's never heard of the God of Abraham. What the fuck, bro? What the fuck? Oh my god. What? I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. There's nothing. There's like literally nothing to say, dude. What a mad cunt, bro. What is he fucking on? I don't know how much.
The history of the Jews, once you get into the details, is even more absurd. This tiny population.
How are these people just everywhere and then like keep causing problems? I don't know, because people keep asking that same question.
Is still important and powerful, dominating many of the major industries of the greatest superpower. This small people indirectly made the 3 largest religions in the world, or Marxism, Christianity, and Islam. In many fields, Jews are 1/3 of Nobel Prize.
What a fuck! What a demon! The 3 largest religions in the world: Islam, Christianity, and Marxism. Dude, fucking Rudy is over here just like demon core level spitting for racism as per usual. He is just so on one. I don't think he realizes how on he is. Like there's 2 parts of me when it comes to WhatIfAltHist, trying to figure out what the fuck is going on in his head. And one part of me is just like, he's stupid and he doesn't get it. And like doesn't quite understand just how racist he is coming off. Do you know what I mean? Oh shit, I missed those. I can go back for them. And then there's like another part of me that thinks like maybe he thinks he actually truly believes he's like 5D Godhead all the way tippity top, like I have figured it out and like I'm getting away with it. Like he legitimately is like, no, I know what the fuck is happening. I'm getting away with it. I'm good. No one suspects I'm racist outside of me just saying a few things that anybody might say. You know what I mean? Oh my god. Okay, I'll just let him go. I'll let him go.
While comprising vastly less than even 1% of the world's population. The Jews have been batted around the world to nearly every continent. What happened here? Historians today like to see the world as operating under reason and probability, in which, almost like statistical models, changes occur gradually over time for incentive structures. The fact that this 4,000-year-old desert tribe still exists and is thriving is a middle finger
like there's
to the
11
idea
tribes,
that the
if I
world
remember
is
correctly.
reasonable or practical. As I like to say, it just happens, and then we have to rationalize later why it makes
actual
sense.
history.
By the
or
way, before I get started, I know this is a controversial topic
I think this
in
is
both directions. The Jews are steeped in controversy.
I think at this point we need the sign up that's just like, this is what WhatIfAltHist actually believes type jam, you know? Like, these are his legitimate thoughts and feelings on the issue. I think we're not into like alt history anymore. I don't think he does that anymore, as a matter of fact. I think this is just history. This is just what if This is just, it is. It is the history. I don't know. It's not as catchy as What If Alt History. My man drank his own Kool-Aid, and he's been recirculating his Kool-Aid inside of his body like some sort of perverse, demonic... Oh, the fog rises. Oh, shit. Some sort of perverse, keep talking. Some sort of perverse, demonic, what do you call that? Dialysis machine. Just constantly rehashing all the same bullshit. Fucking come and get me, bro. Pop. But yeah, I think we're... Oh, nope. I think... Well, actually still got up there. I think the pretense of...
On both the part of their lovers
alt
and haters.
has been
In
abandoned.
researching this, I read books from both pro-Semites and anti-Semites to get every perspective in the search of truth. I continue to stand by the...
Every sentence is a banger. How? Why do you think the anti-Semite would be telling the truth? Is like the crazy thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, what? Fucking what books are these? The law of chill vibes. This is one of my very favorite principles I've developed. It means I refuse to care about anything unless I'm forced to. This is very useful in a culture based around seducing firstly our emotions and then our wallets for various causes and issues that have literally nothing to do with us. Thus, I maintain the law of chill vibes, which states you cannot force me to care about anything that doesn't involve me. I have better things to do than waste my time on this. What if Altist reinvented selfishness?
I refuse to care about anything unless I'm forced to. I think the mob is innately stupid, envious, and predatory. Thus, I refuse to give an inch and just say what I believe to be factually true. Psych! Let's get started.
Psych! Why is he like this, man? Oh yeah, I'm gonna get copy claims for that fucking music. God damn it.
I
Very
spend a
clever,
lot of
Mr.
time
What If
researching
Altist, getting me
online,
while
and
I'm on
I
the fucking
access a
mountainside.
variety of websites which store my data, but thankfully, I am protected with Incogni, the sponsor of today's video.
Is Incogni
Data
racist?
brokers
Does
collect
Incogni know
all
what
of
kind
your
of
private
guy?
information, like your address.
I'm not normally one of those people like, do these people know how racist this guy is? You know what I mean? Where you're talking about like most shit. But in this case, like, but do they? Is Incogni aware? And I don't know who runs that company. Are they aware that this advertisement read is coming on the heels of the statement, I read both pro-Semites and anti-Semites in my goal to learn more about the Semitic fucking issue. Basically, in my literal pursuit of the Jewish question, I read from both pro-Semitic and anti-Semitic sources so that I would have a good and moderate view. Oh my god, like Incogni, do you know how Incogni he needs to be to like fucking survive this shit? My man is on his fucking ish. Oh my god. Bro, this just keeps going. If it just leads back out the same way, I'm gonna be
birthday, online activity,
to say the least.
and even your financial information or your social security number. This information can be sold to companies and government agencies or put on public search sites which are available for anyone to look up. All
Dude,
of
him
this
having to
happens
read
without
the
your
fucking
knowledge
script
or
they provide
control.
is probably so
the
hard
good
for him.
news is that you can request for this data to be removed, but the bad news is that it could take you years to do manually. That's where our sponsor Incogni comes in. They make the process of taking back control of your information quick and easy. Their service will work on your behalf to contact these data brokers and request the removal of your information, while keeping you informed and in the loop the whole time with their dashboard. You just create an account, grant Incogni the right to work for you, and sit back and watch them work. They'll even handle any objections for you. Incogni goes above and beyond to give you back control of your personal information. For my fans, they're offering you a 60% off an annual plan for anyone who clicks the link below at incogni.com/WhatIfAltHist and uses the code WhatIfAltHist. They offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no reason to not click the link and start using Incogni today.
Boulder. Boulder.
Part
Boulder.
1, Abraham's
Boulder.
people.
Boulder.
I mentioned this in the
Boulder.
other video, but
Yes.
one of the coolest facts we've discovered recently is that from analyzing the Y chromosomes of people who claim his descent, we have effectively proven the existence of Abraham, the biblical father of both the Jews and Arabs, given they share an ancestor in that place and time. This leads
What?
to an acronym I've developed, or TAWI, which means the ancients weren't idiots. When I say this, it speaks to the trend we keep on finding that ancient myths that we used to not take seriously.
What I gotta say, there's no way I'm finishing this video. Okay, I'll tell you what. If you want to see it, if you've seen this video and you're like, Tyler, I can't wait for you to get to X part, and you don't think I'm gonna get to it before the end, just donate 10 or 15 bucks, and I'll skip to it. I'll skip to that part. Okay. Because there's no way I'm not pause Andying throughout this entire fucking thing the whole time. That is just their statements are fucking amazing. Okay, is all I can really say. The statements are fucking incredible, and I love them. How dare you say these things with your face? What if alt is? Yeah, we just so people said that they were descended from Abraham. They said so, and we're like, that's fuck. Oh no. Oh shit. Remedy fungus. Okay. Bro, I thought the thing was gonna fucking explode. I haven't seen that item before yet. I'm gonna cook it. But like, my man is just cracked, bro. God tier, like high level cracked. No, fuck it, dude. I'm getting, speaking of crack, alright? I'm gonna go ahead and have Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting sleepy.
Woo.
Don't trip. You'll die.
As we gather more evidence, are consistently more accurate than we originally thought. Easy examples of this are Troy and the biblical flood, and I talk about this more in the text wall in front of you. According to the Jewish tradition, they started out in the area around modern Iraq, where Abraham was fleeing the moral corruption of the Mesopotamian city-state of Uruk around 2000 BC. This shows an opening for two different important points of Jewish history. The first being that the Jews were a sort of scavenger people along the edges of the older Fertile Crescent civilizations. The second being that the Jews were a reaction to the collapsing sociological institutions to the end of civilizational cycle 1. There had already been pre-established civilizations for thousands of years in a territory stretching in an arc from Egypt to the bottom of Iraq called the Fertile Crescent. According to the biblical myth, the Jews started in Iraq, following the edge of the desert to reach...
Look, Bing Bong. We have to go really far. And I know I carried you all the way up here from our little plane, but you're so heavy, Bing Bong. You're so heavy. I need you. Bing Bong! Bing Bong! Bing Bong! No! Bing Bong, no!
Oh no, me marshmallow. Oh, I fucking forgot to cook that. Oh well. I was having too much fun engaging in hijinks. I haven't used a Pandora's lunchbox. But I'm packing heavy. All right, let's go.
Modern Israel and the frontiers of Egypt, where we have the first records of a people who could be the Jews, or the Hapiru from Egyptian records. The Jews existed in this weird place between barbarism, civilization, being a social class, an ethnicity, or a religious group. There are two groups in America which I think are useful proxies for the Jews. The first being the Mormons and the latter being the desert trash. Oftentimes you'll find that areas with similar climates will develop comparable...
I can't go to... What if all... I know, you're like... What if Altist fan? Oh, you're cutting him off before he explains? What on earth is the desert trash? What on fucking earth? Is he talking about fucking 29 Palms meth heads? Because if he's talking about the 29 Palms meth heads, all of us, like, he might become the most based fucking person of all time. That's actually a crazy thing to know about. But the statements are crazy. I don't know. I don't have anything else to add. You know you don't have anything else to add. This motherfucker.
Cultural traits, even if they don't have much else in common. So it's not super strange to draw parallels between the desert climate of the American West and the Middle East. The Mormons are an American religious group originally seeded from the Yankee diaspora in places like Vermont or upstate New York and Ohio. They were founded during the Second Great Awakening in the early 19th century and migrated west, populating the area around Utah and the neighboring states where they formed a sort of distinct ethnic identity. The Mormon Church acted as a centrally planned theocracy which strategically populated the American West on purpose. The similarities between the Jews and Mormons are that they both unified into very strong degrees of in-group cooperation by holding strange religious beliefs. The Mormons were known for a very distinct theology, practicing polygamy at the start, being ruled by a central church theocratic hierarchy, banning alcohol and ritual prescriptions. The Mormons are known for being simultaneously very strange, being seen as a cult by many Americans, but also admired by other Americans for their moral character between having very high social trust, birth rates, social cooperation, and good values. The Jews were seen in a very similar light by the neighboring Middle Eastern peoples. A funny element to this is that because the Bible has colored so much of our understanding of ancient Middle East history in total, it would be
29 Palms meth heads. Oh my god. Okay, so 29 Palms is an American military base. War crimes, war crimes, war crimes, war crimes. Don't worry, it's inside America. Oh, thank God. It's still one of the worst places to be alive, okay? 29 Palms, okay, is mostly really like an air base and like a training ranges. So that's a pretty common thing throughout most of the military world, is that you'll have bases that are for like Camp Lejeune is a base for living on, and then like next to Camp Lejeune you have like Camp Geiger, and then you have a series of other, I think there's a few other smaller camps that I can't remember the name of them though, where they're actually like, they're designated individual military bases, but the operating schema of the base isn't for like living on and doing work, it's for doing like training or shooting or whatever the fuck. 29 Palms is where combined CAX, combined armed exercise, takes place, or at least took place back when the fucking Iraq war was still kicking. And all CAX is basically teaching people how to work together. Oh, you ain't giving me shit? Alright, compass, where's the, come on, this isn't even a pirate fucking compass, so I'm fucked here. Combined arms exercise, right? You go out there and you learn how to fucking work with a bunch of different people. Shit. And the whole base of 29 Palms, aside from the one part that's just shit water and sucks, is like a series of big ass fucking ranges. Huge fucking ranges. They're massive. I mean, like, multiple miles squared, right? They're big as fuck. because they're for like bombers, like A-10s and fucking C-130 Hercules units to like practice shooting on. And so the thing about the ranges is they're all stacked next to each other in a bunch of big grids of fucking trapezoids and rhomboids, whatever the fuck, and they're all next to each other. And the only way to get to a bunch of the ranges is to drive through the ranges, right? And so, like, there's these, we call them range roads, that normally you wouldn't be driving on for anything, and they get shut down bit by bit so that you can go from, like, one place to another, right? So basically what that means is you're on road 129, and it goes through range A, B, C, and D so that you can get to range E. You're like, Tyler, that seems really inefficient. Like, trust me, it's the best way to organize it. The fucking planes and, like, the artillery and stuff that shoot need all of that range. That room. Military technology, when it hits the ground, is full of valuable-ish stuff. If you're a scrapper, if you find things that are on the ground and you run out there and steal it, or find it, you can pick up, you know, the hull of a practice 500-pound bomb. It's like a few hundred pounds of steel, and you go and you cut it to pieces and you scrap it. And so these people are the fucking, the fucking 29 Palms meth heads is the only way, it's the nicest way to say it. And they fucking sneak out onto these ranges in between bombing runs and stuff, listening out for it, to go steal metal and other bomb component chunks of shit. I mean, like, they're not gonna find anything that's, like, important. They're not gonna find some sort of, like, advanced guidance system, anything that has, you know, a range that has something cool like that on it. The people that drop the bombs keep a really strict eye on, and they go out and they fucking gut those systems, but then they still usually leave the shells out there because they're just so fucking heavy. So one of the things that you have to do when you're on 29 Palms, if you're doing training and you're like me, I didn't need the basic training, and I also didn't have a unit underneath me for my second deployment. Like, I didn't have like a fire team. So they're like, yeah, you're a non-critical trainee. You already know what the fuck is going on, but you don't need to learn how to fucking, like, get people to work for you. So we're just gonna send you out into the desert for 2 weeks, right? I was out there for, yeah, I think it was a week and a half the first time, and then most of a week the second time, right? Time kind of goes down. And what you gotta do is you basically go on watch, and you gotta go sit out in these fucking massive desert fields at crossroads and tell people, like, they can't go past. Like, that's all you do, is you sit there as basically a fucking glorified traffic guard. Like, don't go that way. And before we go out, people are like, yeah, there's 3 things you gotta watch out for out there. There's the fucking death turtles they'll ruin your career. So there's a turtle in 29 Palms. I think it's just called a sand tortoise. I can't remember exactly. And the sand tortoise is an endangered species, and they're big tortoises. They're endemic to that area and almost nowhere else. And if you pick one up, or bother one, it can void its bladder, which it requires to, like, camel water for, like, months at a time or some shit. It'll void its bladder and die of dehydration, and it's your fault, and everyone will talk about killing you. And your unit will get in trouble, and your fucking actual CO will get in trouble, so, like, don't go fuck with those things. The next thing is coyotes, because there's just coyotes, like the animal, the little dog guy, little dog friend, coyotes. And they might attack you, they might not. They get up to some hijinks, you know. Coyotes like to fuck around, as they do. Ooh, carrot. Medicinal root. Hey, you go over here, okay? And so, like, you gotta watch out for the coyotes because there's, like, a bunch of them, and you don't get a gun. Like, they don't send you out there with a gun because they're like, that's a good way to get somebody that's valuable injured, and you are not a valuable person. You are a fucking dickhead that we put on cross-guard duty, permanent cross-guard duty. So you just fucking hang out over here. And so you gotta watch out for those guys. What we did was we got tent stakes, and we sharpened them and put them on poles because we actually did have coyotes fucking around with us. And they were like, the advice given to us by the other people on the ranges was just like, yeah, you should just not get eaten by them, because everyone will make fun of you. They're really small. So if you just, like, if they attack you, kill one of them really quick, if it lunges, and then the rest of them should leave. And then we have to fill out forms for the coyotes you killed. So also just try not to do it in general. Just avoid the coyotes. Like, bro, they're running around my tent in the middle of the night. They're like, yeah, well, if they don't come in, then fuck it. And then the last thing you have to watch out for are the fucking unpredictable 29 Palms meth heads. Some of whom are former Marines, apparently. So like, this is, by the way, this information might be slightly outdated. Old intel, okay? So last time I was doing this was 2008. And it's been a minute. The fog rises. There we go. So yeah. What am I saying? Can I get up on top of it? Yeah. Right. So, the last people, yeah, these meth heads, and they are like drug addicts, which is why they're trying to go in there and scrap all this fucking metal. And they can be dangerous because they might like attack you, so that they don't go to jail or whatever they think is gonna happen. And also because they're fucking morons. They're like legitimately like stupid people that go and collect chunks of bombs, and they're not like bomb disposal experts, right? So they don't know shit. Ah, shit. Whoop. There we go. So like they'll go out there and pick up explosives and then hold on to fucking explosives. You know what I mean? And they'll be walking around. So if you stop them, there's a possibility that the guy's walking around with like a 65mm mortar in his pocket that hasn't been exploded. Because UXO is a major issue on ranges. That's easy to deal with. You just stay the fuck off the ranges, and then you do UXO disposal, like, if you ever decommission the range. Which is a whole different fucking kit and caboodle, right? Be mad about that, environmentalists, in a different video. And so, like, they're like, yeah, watch out for these guys. There's meth heads out there. And, like, a few of them are probably people that used to be in the military, right? If not Marines from 29 Palms, like, something else. Which is like why they even know some of this shit's here. So like, they're just fucking nuts. And we end up talking to these guys that work on 29 Palms because they're the ones that are coming by. It's like no one from my unit is doing checkups on us. It's the actual range control, which is just a job. Like, you're like, oh, I thought everybody signed up to the military to be a baby killer. Like, no, some guys get to wear safari hats and they drive around on fucking ranges all day, and everybody kind of like tolerates them and respects them and likes them. It's like the weirdest job to have in the military. Or at least in the Marines. And so, like, those guys are out there fucking doing, you know, whatever. They come and check up on you, and they're like, yeah, you guys gotta watch out for the meth people. I'm like, okay, cool. And they're like, also, if you see any other, like, Marines out here, you know, being weird, don't fucking approach them, because we have an issue. People, like, have been making bathtub, fucking methamphetamine out of, like, I don't know, Tide, like, dish detergent and other chemicals. And, like, it's a big problem on base, but nobody talks about it openly because, you know, the military. But, like, keep an eye for people, like, trying to do weird shit in the middle of the night. And report it first, because there's going to be no one coming here. Like, basically, like, they're like, you're on your own for 2 weeks. So if you see fucking anybody, we don't know who that is. All right? Like, you're only going to see us. Anybody else... you know, you have to call it in and flag them down, right? Call it in and flag them down. Do not flag them down and then call it in, because, you know, who the fuck knows what could happen? Because there's some, like, weird shit happening out here. And 29 Palms is just like that. Like, all the rest of the military bases I've been on, pretty much, like, squared away. They are what they are, you know? Like, you go to Pendleton, you even go to the nice part of 29 Palms, and you're like, oh, this doesn't feel... like everything else. Camp Lejeune has got like old New England military base vibes. If you don't know, then you don't know, and if you do, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's fucking same 2.5, 3-story brick buildings with the white fucking doors and roofs and whatever the fuck's everywhere. Hey, I feel like that area needs a drug. All that area, what that area needs is a drug clinic. Yeah, probably. Thank you for the $10. The outside of 29 Palms is Riverside, California, and then also just the high desert. There are no facilities in that area. Maybe there probably are some small amounts, but basically right next to 29 Palms, the big place is Palm Springs, which you've heard of, right? Rich people, Palm Springs, California. There are probably some also not rich people, but Palm Springs is pretty, and then you get into the desert, and then you get into the high fucking Mojave. and then you're out there. It's literally like, you know the area you're walking through in fucking, the area you guys are walking through in like 20 in fucking, what's that goddamn game? New Vegas and shit, and like boomers and stuff. You know, your high desert. That's where it is. It looks exactly the same. Fucking Looney Tunes, Roadrunner ass, fucking mesas, endless flats. Everything is fucking uncomfortable. There's nothing it doesn't have one small sharp rock on it. Everything has at least a minimum of one small, pointlessly fucking sharp rock on the damn thing. And that's basically what it is. So like outside of that, you just have like Riverside, which is like poor as fuck California. I think that's Riverside. I might be fucking it up now. There's no river, by the way. There's no river in Riverside. And you just drive. It's like you're out there and it's like high-ass desert. Everything's like red-brown colored, nothing. And then it's more nothing. And then it's additional fucking extra bits of nothing. And then after you get through all of that nothing, there's more nothing. And then you get to fucking 29 Palms, which has like a big fucking shit lake in it that sucks. Everyone hates the fucking shit lake. And that's pretty much it. So like, yeah, all that land, well, at least when I was there, is so fucking desolate. So desolate. That it, basically like, oh, that's a big skull. It's so fucking, desolate that like they have signs everywhere that basically say like, hey, why don't you consider permanently moving here? You know what I mean? We'll give you like $1,500 tax break because no one fucking lives here. No one lives here. No one wants to live here. It fucking sucks. We hate it. You hate it. But if you live here, we'll give you like $1,500 a fucking month to fucking hang out. Like, okay. Really? Like, yeah, man. Fucking for sure, bro. I'm just using this. I don't care if I need to use it or not. I have extra rope. And so, like, yeah, there probably do need, like, meth clinics, but I think people just move out there into the high desert to live, like, alone and do meth. Like, they're, like, it's one of those places where I'm probably, like, talking out of my ass. That's fine. I'm just gonna do it for the bit. Because fuck those people in their need. No, but, like, there probably is, like, an issue and people are solving it. But there's also, for certain, a non-zero amount of individuals who are just like, is that pineapple? Hey, kingberry. Poison? Oh, super poison. A non-zero amount of people who are just like, I just want to fucking live out here and get paid $1,500 a year to do phenomenal amounts of methamphetamine. Alone in a trailer with some woman that I found on the streets of Palm Springs. You know? Like, it is a non-place. It's kind of fucking crazy. I think my buddy, one of my friends that I was in with was actually from, like, Riverside, but even he's like, I'm from Riverside, but I'm not from anywhere, like, near here, but it's still, like, high desert. He was weird as shit. He became, like, a silversmith, and I don't know if he lost his mind or if he found it, but I've not talked to him in, like, decades. Actual, almost approaching decades now. He just, like, degridded, which it just happens. You just lose track of people. They degrid. They're gone. No social media. No nothing. He could be dead. He might not be. There's no telling. And he would not appreciate me checking in on him. Or if he does, then the few times I did and he didn't return any calls, it was probably like, hey, fucking, he out there now. Okay, he's doing fucking like writing in a war journal, living somewhere out in the fucking high desert, making turquoise jewelry or some shit. But yeah, that place is fucking, it's bonkers. It's like a real bizarro world type deal. No judgment on you if you live out there. It is what it is. You know, I get it. You have to exist somewhere. Who am I to speak? I'm from fucking Ohio. You know. How dare I, in just a general sense of daring, how dare I dare? Okay, I'm gonna try that route. These things are really deceptive because they're actually crooked as fuck. And it can be hard to tell just how much climbing you have left until you're considered vertical. Okay, can I get that? This actually got me a lot higher than I fucking thought it would. Yeah. So that, yeah, that's 29 palms and the 29 palms meth heads. No judgment, man. You want to smoke meth? Hey, man, I had some cousins that did it. Fucked up their life for a little bit, but they got their shit back together. I hope
As
you can
if
too.
3,000 to 4,000 years in the future, the only main narrative that people would study modern American history through would be through the history of the Mormons. And that's just one of the ironic things that you'll see over history, a few different places and times. And it's hard to see this now, given we live in a world where Jewish religion won on such a global scale. But in the ancient world of kings and gods, the Jews were seen as strange, as we would see the Mormons today. The Jews were the most religious people of the ancient world, even in time periods like Greco-Roman classical dominance, in which secularism was very powerful.
Greco-Roman is a type of wrestling.
And the Jews even had one of the highest birth rates. In some ways, the religiosity combined with militarism during that Hellenistic time period is reminiscent of Islamic radicals like the Taliban today. On top of this, the Jews had lots of ritual prescriptions, which over the course of Jewish history became completely encumbering in every single aspect of life. For its entire history, the Jews were a theocracy where the religious ruling class constantly made the religion more complex and autistic. There was a very long time when the Jewish practice of monotheism was seen as insane in a world dominated by polytheism. On top of this, the dietary restrictions like no pork consumption, denial of other gods, circumcision, never taking the Lord's name in vain, sexual prudery, among others, were seen as very strange. This was seen as trying too hard by every other ancient people, in the same way the moderns look at the Mormons or Islamic religious fundamentalists thinking, why did they have to do all of those weird things? However, this was probably by design in the same way the Mormons...
We're like only the Jews had a prescriptive religion, a prescriptive faith with weird tenets is nuts. That's like that. Even the most like anti-Semitic person, I don't think would try to make an argument that like Jews were just way more religious than other people. Like, yeah, they're just fucking Jews were just over here like religioning in just such a crazy way. Like they're just like way too dedicated. If we're talking about like, I think what we're talking about here is like Pharisees, right? So like Pharisee Judaism is what became like the current type of Judaism, sort of, kind of. But I mean, we're talking about Roman history and stuff, and they were still integrated into the Roman peoples, which is why like any quote unquote issues came up. But like the big thing with the Pharisees and noticeable Judaism is that was like one of the first things where it's like, yeah, we got Judaism should be a noticeable and like shameless. You shouldn't be ashamed of being Jewish, right? So like you got circumcised to show your dedication to the whole kit and caboodle, right? Like yeah. We circumcise boys, but because like Roman culture at the time thought like, hey, you know, a foreskin is kind of based, and like also the parts that aren't the foreskin being exposed, right, underneath it means like you're a horny weirdo. It caused like social wonkiness between them and the Romans of the time, which is like a thing. And they're like, oh, it's partially like to plan because you shouldn't be. This shows your covenant with God, right? You're doing this whole deal. The thing is like a lot of fucking faiths have visible covenants with God that are to some degree some form of, if not necessarily, if you want to call it self-mutilation, you can, but, you know, physically altering. You know, you have tattoos and fucking scarification rituals and jewelry and all sorts of other stuff, too. And as religions usually become more metropolitan, the more, you should call it, like, scorchberry. Is that going to just set me on fire? It's a fucking pepper. I don't eat a fucking pepper. I don't eat I'm gonna eat what's clearly a ghost pepper instead. Oh. Yeah. Oh, watch out, you. Oh, sorry. I gotta focus on this. But yeah, as you become more metropolitan, it doesn't matter what your religions are. The most dominant religions' ideas of how the faith should be practiced will be continuing on. But like, you know, the less, even those most dominant ones are gonna go kind of falling a little bit by the wayside as people go, you know, I don't really want to fucking paint my entire, like, permanently tattoo my face blue for fucking Loki or whatever the fuck, you know what I mean? It becomes too onerous a task to do all that other bullshit. Can I get up there? Yeah. It's probably I don't need to. No, this feels deceptively. Yeah, I think I can get it actually. Oh, cool. Yeah, I got that. My final thought is I don't think like that's remotely
by moving across the Great American Desert
like
to
typical
Utah.
to Judaism.
The Jews were using all of these ritual prescriptions as a sort of shit test, or a term from dating discourse in which a girl will purposely insult you as a way to test your confidence in order to establish insanely high in-group cooperation and sense of community. If you were willing to sacrifice this much for the religion, it meant you really cared and could be trusted.
Reinventing an already extant
is that Israel
concept.
was stuck in the middle of the map.
I don't know why.
I literally calculated it, and the Levant is the region that has faced the most invasions over world history. The Jews were a tiny group, surrounded by greater powers on all sides, whether the Egyptians, Persians, Babylonians, Assyrians, Greeks, or Romans. Thus, the Jews started to look at different strategies for survival, which were more subtle. In other terms, under the constant pressure of constant external threats, the Jews turned to religion partly to hold their community together under the threat of constant foreign conquest. At the very same time, religion was a way of sort of hacking the game that was placed on extra hard mode against their consent. One of the Jews' most admirable traits is an insane level of introspection on the part of an ancient society. When you look at the ancient world, you see an era in which the Assyrians bragging about publicly torturing their enemies for state propaganda being relatively normal, or where every great power tried to glorify their own power as much as possible, normally to ridiculous, improbable degrees. The Jews have an incredibly strong educational tradition, which stems from this priest class's emphasis on introspection and wisdom. As I said before, the Jews were a theocracy for almost all of their history, and for much of it a hereditary...
That's not how... First off, you can't have that... People gotta stop using theocracy by saying that, like, religion being a motivating force in your life, even the primary motivating force in your life, does not mean, by any stretch of the imagination, you live in or are even participating in a theocracy. You can live in a theocracy that's not your own religion, which I know, like, he probably won't be. Of course, that's what the Marxists want for us. But I keep hearing this. I hear this from fucking, like, righties or lefties too. Where they're like, if fucking evangelicals, Christians took over, do you think it wouldn't be a theocracy? And it's like, no, because it's not. That's not what a theocracy is. There is no, like, religious king. Like, that's the head of the theocracy means that the fucking actual religious faith and its organization forms the head of your state. You know what I mean? Like, the actual religion. So, like, the Holy See, right? The Pope is, like, in charge of the Vatican, I think. I'm pretty sure this is correct. Or at least he was back in the day. That is a theocracy. The Pope, who is the head of the faith, is running shit as an extant member of that faith for the purpose of that faith, operating the land in the state as a state of that religion. Like, that's the point. Monarchies had people who they would say, like, are from God, and they're very powerful, but they're still like a monarchy, right? It's not, the religion itself is not running the place. Caliphates were very often like theocracies, right? They're theocratic, because it's like, okay, this guy is given the divine will to run their religion and the state by Allah or whatever the hell. You know what I mean? And shout out to everybody who's Muslim who I just trampled on you a little bit. But like, that's the case. But like a actual hereditary monarchy, you know what I mean? Or even just like a really overly irritatingly religious liberal democracy is not a it's not a fucking theocracy just because religion is a major element in it. I don't know why people say this. The Jews, I don't think, have ever had anything approaching a theocracy until, like, you could even say would possibly become one, I think, until fucking, modern day Israel. If Israel maybe of, like, the Bible, I think, or Judea or whatever the hell, my Bible stuff escapes me, but I don't know how real those were. And we have a vested interest in the West in pretending that they were maybe just a little bit more real than they actually are. That's a whole thing. I don't know. WhatIfAltHist is basically correct? I mean, basically correct does a lot of fucking legwork when you're talking about all of human history. Tyler, I challenge you. Use Cesaro papism. Tyler, I challenge you. Use Cesaro papism
Rabbi
in a
ruling
sentence.
class which practiced.
The Borgia dynasty, established by Rodrigo Borgia, attempted to establish a hereditary empirical monarchy in the Holy See in the manner of Caesar, under an idea of Cesaro papism. Is that even remotely like something that's like, is that accurate? I don't know. Some of these fucking history terms, I swear to God, these isms really are like, people are like, I don't like isms a lot. And it's like, sometimes I do get it because some of them are useful, but some of them seem more descriptive than they actually are. And if you take them outside of the unfathomably niche academic fucking, not even setting, the singular academic conversation between like 12 people over 50 years where they exist, they mean nothing. To make an argument every state prior to the Enlightenment was a theocracy, I mean, once you soften it up, everything's a fucking theocracy if somebody believes in God and then does a thing. The issue is that like the theocracy needs, by default of how it's put together, like an actual priest class. That's what it is. It's like priests. You need priests or like imams or prophets or whatever to be like the people who run the state by virtue of their religious ascendancy through the clergy or however the religious structure of the thing is. They are like running the shit. Oh, fuck. That mine. Get dunked on. So it's like, yeah, once you start stretching it out, if you say that like a religion has a dominant influence on any faith, or even just that like the person who is the head of the cult, like the cultural head is like appointed by God, then the point of theocracy is completely defeated anyway. Because then like all of Imperial Japan and shit like just is like, oh, it's a theocracy. Like, that's kind of not really grasping the point of it. I think theocracy is extremely Western as well. Like, it's... Oh, hi. Oh, hello. Buddy. Oh, I'm not taking those off your heads. There's capybaras. Capybara. Capybara. There's capybaras here. But yeah, like, you kind of defeat the point of even having the word, you know what I mean? And it does strike me as pretty Western, because it's, everybody hates the idea of theocracy. Like, monarchs hated the idea of a theocracy because it kind of really takes your ability to rule at a small local level kind of out of your hands. And it puts too much onus on faith as a method of, like, you know, statecraft, which I guess maybe there's probably some faiths out there where it's okay, but Catholicism specifically, where it would have started, and Protestantism, it's a pain in the fucking ass. Do you know what I mean? I guess, you know, England had the Church of England and stuff, but it's still more of a hereditary monarchy than it was like a theocracy in my mind. Can you pet them? I only had an interaction for whatever. But like, there's probably, I don't know, I'd have to have some fucking actual, like, not like some person that's read 5 history books. You would need an actual, like, historian. And I feel like that's a thing. Like, I know I'm not even that confident in my overall definition. I feel like that's something that you would have people having, like, who are at the top of their game, having deep conversations about, like, what specifically these words meant outside of fucking, come on, what the hell? It's not that slippery. You know, outside of some, like, obviously, you know, equivalent terms. Oh, I died here. I know this area. Got lucky this time. Are you gonna go off again? Oh, that's kind of fucking awesome. I got stuck down there. I remember this space. I probably shouldn't be climbing here, because this one kicked my fucking ass the first time. What else? What do I have in my bag? Dude, I ain't got shit. I don't know if I should just dump some of this. Like, do I need fucking 2 ropes? I probably do. Can I? How high can I? Can I go up like that? Oh, that's some bullshit. Probably helps a little bit. I don't know. Is this a hack? Because technically rope is like lower overall impact on you. Oh, no, this is actually a really good place to use rope, now that I think about it. Fuck. Okay. Yeah. Oh God. Am I gonna freeze to death? Yeah. Ah! Woo! Woo! Oh, does that even go anywhere? Not that fucking tight. Oh God, I'm in a crevasse. Maybe this is better to just go sideways here. Okay, I'm gonna let him play for a bit.
Polygamy. What this did was create a cultural and genetic selection pressure for high verbal intelligence and analysis abilities, which is why the Jews are per capita the highest achieving demographic in the world intellectually. It's part of the reason why Jews can make up 40% of Nobel Prize winners in physics or economics, while being 0.1% of the total population. The Jews are literally the only group besides Northwest Europeans, which have generated innovation in the modern world. Meanwhile, with the Jews, they used religion as a sort of playthrough system in which they could corroborate millennia of evidence to see what would and would not work. The Old Testament is a historic record of the Jewish nation from roughly 2000 BC to 400 BC, in which the Jews wrote about what did and did not work for them as a nation. Part of the reason the Bible has become the most important book in history is that the Jews faced nearly every single thing a nation can face, since it was written over such a long time period. The Jews faced conquering a local population, being in turn conquered by foreigners, empire, being slaves, decadence, barbarism, golden age, and dark ages. What the Jews consistently found was that in each situation, loyalty to God was the trait that worked. For atheists, this makes sense if you contextualize God as the objective laws of the universe. Thus, by following God, they were following universal positive principles. The reason the Jews have survived so long while practically everyone else from that era of history has fallen apart since is partly that the Jews have a very strong, inbuilt introspective mechanism that allows them to adjust after failure. Failure has made the Jews stronger over history, which is the marker of a healthy nation. Healthy nations use struggle to improve, and weak nations are destroyed by struggle. The second reason the Jews survived was their incredibly high in-group cohesion. These shared history, rituals, specific customs, and the like that the Jews had gave them a very strong sense of identity. The Jews made themselves strange on purpose, purposely isolating themselves and pushing away outsiders in a way to create a large enough gulf between Jew and Gentile so that the Jews would always stick together when times got tough. With the tradition of Jewish prophets, you're seeing the Jewish priest class speaking out against the forces of entropy that had killed the other Asian civilizations. This included debt slavery, rising inequality, family breakdown, private quarrels, moral degeneracy, pagan gods, and weakness. The Ten Commandments is an incredibly advanced behavioral psychological understanding, and we don't realize it since this breakthrough occurred 3,000 years ago. The Jews, although they were a primitive desert herder people, were centuries to millennia more advanced mentally than the neighboring peoples. This was since the Jews had forms to avoid the failings of the neighboring older civilizations. The Jews were created in the rubble of the Bronze Age collapse. This was a time period in the 12th century BC in which a majority of civilization in the world collapsed in a 20-year period. This was due to a series of complex factors relating to the barbarian invasions, plague, climate change, military technological advancements, social structures, and other stuff. Watch my wonderful second podcast, History 102, if you're interested in hearing more about the Bronze Age collapse or early Jewish history. Fun fact, the Philistines in the Bible were the sea people which destroyed much of the civilization in the eastern Mediterranean during the Bronze Age collapse. The sea peoples were also heavily ethnically intermixed with the Greeks, and thus it's not unimaginable that Goliath's grandfather fought at Troy. It's also funny that the term Philistine has become synonymous with someone who is aesthetically or artistically tasteless.
Would it have been God? Would it have been Goliath's grandfather? I don't know why I'm latching on to that detail specifically, but I just find it very funny that it's the grandfather. Do we have a time? It's just 2 generations between Troy and the thing. I don't know. I'm not studied at this. The irony there is that the Philistines controlled the wealthy coastal cities of the Levant, while the Jews were barely literate hill tribes in the interior. The Philistines saw the Jews as savages. The second population in the American West I'm comparing to the Jews are the desert trash. I apologize if this is offensive to people who are part of this group. I'm from Pennsylvania, and I don't know this stuff since redneck is a term of pride. When I was driving from California to Texas, I kept running into this demographic of people I had no idea existed, since back home, every social group is practically centuries old. The desert trash are people who live in trailer parks out in the desert, or kind of low-class people
who are really into guns or aliens in places like Arizona, Nevada, California, or New Mexico. I see similarities to Florida, which have their own variants. They have their own subculture, which is highly libertarian, but also degenerate at the same time. The desert trash people are often really interesting as individuals if you talk to them. They'll have weird hobbies, are from all over the country, and normally have a story or two. The desert trash end up being in the desert since in the urban culture of America, it's becoming too inhospitable for human procreation and thriving. The desert trash people tend to not be stupid in many cases, but rather people who couldn't handle the 8 to 7 work schedule, the loneliness and soullessness, so they snapped and moved out to the desert. It wouldn't surprise me if as the cities get sicker, if the desert trash form their own distinct subculture that over the course of centuries perhaps repopulates the American West if something goes really bad. These are the sorts of things that are happening in the Bronze Age as the old civilizations decayed and collapsed. The first potential records for a people who could be the Jews is from the Egyptian records, who wrote about a people called the Hapiru, who were a social class of bandits on the edge of Egypt, who existed as a sort of subjugated nation. Egypt at this point was a multicultural society in which the lower Nile Delta was filled with dozens of somewhat assimilated, conquered, or immigrant peoples. The Hapiru were a sort of Semitic desert trash population which accumulated people who didn't fit in the Bronze Age aristocratic extractive social structure.
This guy has
over time,
access to racism
they formed as a
that I've never
distinct
heard
ethnic
before.
identity, and then my guess is that Moses took the helm, establishing a very strange religion to unify this population that didn't have much else. Abraham fled Uruk due to the idol worship there, and I think that's symbolic of how the Middle East had been taken over by a bureaucratic, sclerotic, and unimaginative religion which stifled any innovation or progress. Lots of temples actively pushed prostitution for religious reasons. The priests held enormous wealth, keeping a lot of the population as slaves. Every action required a magical bribe for the priests to keep evil spirits away, and creativity or innovation was impossible under a mess of religious regulations. This was the greatest reason the old civilizations of Egypt and Mesopotamia went into decline to later be conquered by the Persians and the Greeks. Although the Jews did get pretty autistic on religion later on, they were careful that it wasn't enough to genuinely stifle their national character and vitality. The thing the Jews were able to do is to take up the advanced religious ideas these older civilizations had developed but were incapable of putting into action. The Jews were a desert herder people from the fringes of Egypt who had none of the hang-ups that the older temple societies had. There's been a long-standing battle in the Middle East between the farmers and herders. The farmers have established urban societies that were more cultured, urbane, degenerate, and peaceful. Christianity became a religion of the city people. Then there were the herders who were more tough, patriarchal, taboo-oriented, and monotheistic. Judaism, followed by Islam, were manifestations of this. In the long term, the culture of the herders won out, and when you read the Bible, a lot of what they were doing was a herder people who had recently settled into an urban society who were trying to avoid the degeneracy they saw in previous or other urban societies. One of the facts which took me a lot of time to figure out but became very useful for me once I did is that in the same way you'll hear about Mesopotamian or Egyptian or Hittite or Persian civilization, there was a Syrian Aramaean civilization that stretched across the entire Levant and included the Canaanites and the Phoenicians, and it's why Aramaean was the language a lot of the Bible was spoken in or written in initially, where Christ spoke Aramaean. And this Aramaean Syrian culture was quite important to the ancient world. It became the dominant language of both Assyria and the Persian Empire, I believe. And the Jews were a fringe group from the Aramaean civilization, or the Syrian civilization, where they were on the edges with the Arabian desert, having a lot of nomadic cultural influences. And in this fringe position, they established a new religion pulling elements from the older Syrian civilization, which was both a part and also incredibly distinct from said Syrian civilization. And so when the Jews conquered the Canaanites, they were an iteration of the same civilization as the Canaanites, who had an enormous religious breakthrough, which they tried to and succeeded at enforcing upon the Canaanites. Judaism became a sponge for lots of other religious ideas in that region in that era. Monotheism was originally an Egyptian religious concept in which Egypt went through a brief period of government-enforced monotheism before sliding back into the worship of the old gods. If Moses grew up in the court of Egypt, as the Bible suggests, and keep in mind the Pharaoh of Egypt probably had thousands of harem girls, so it makes sense that Moses incorporated a failed concept in Egypt. On top of this, the idea of God and the devil fighting each other, or angels and demons, is from Persian Zoroastrianism. A concept of hell, and a lot of the later theological concepts about reaching heaven and metaphysical stuff stem from the Greeks, and most of the myths in the book of Genesis have very strong parallels in Mesopotamian mythology. Jewish monotheism formed gradually over the course of thousands of years, in that in the first chapters of the Bible, which were written around 2,000 years before the birth of Christ, while modern Judaism reached its current form around 500 BC with the Axial Age. Keep in mind, at the very same time, around the world in 500 BC, you saw Socrates, Buddha, Confucius, and Lao Tzu living around that era with a huge religious breakthrough called the Axial Age. Over time, the Jews gradually purged their pagan gods and worship of local spirits called Baals until they only venerated one god. Part 2, God's Chosen People. In the other video, I spoke about a concept I invented called the Master Key, which is another term for a skeleton key, where the master key is once you've studied a complex topic enough, and you can simplify the soul of that topic into a single sentence, which can explain incredible complexity about it. The master key for the Jews is that they believe they are God's chosen people. Without understanding that, none of the Jews' actions will make sense. The Greek genre of tragedy is predicated upon the idea that for the great, their greatest strength is also their downfall. This is foundational to Aristotle's entire philosophy, and you can see it play out with the Jews as well. That their greatest strengths and their greatest issues comes from their belief that they are God's chosen people. The Jews have historically believed themselves to be superior to other peoples. The problem with this is that it was true enough, in that the Jews were gradually able to excel in nearly every field, whether economics, family life, community, religion, science, and philosophy, that it fed into the Jews' delusions while filling other nations with murderous envy. If the Albanians said they were God's chosen people, we just say that was adorable with contempt mixed in, but when a population says they're God's chosen people, and then their tiny religion becomes world-conquering, with now a majority of the world's population following the Jewish God, it gets more arguable. The will of God is a dangerous and chaotic thing. God is a reflection of all things, and thus the ability to
I want to say for the record, by the way, if anyone doesn't remember this, WhatIfAltHist talks to God regularly, like literally in his mind.
Ritual prescriptions and obsessive
and by God he means almost like anything that could conceptually be God.
Desire for psychological stability with the knowledge that they are this nuclear reactor for divine inspiration in their worldview. One of the things the Jews have a tendency to do is call the bluff on civilizational cycles. To explain this, I have a system based off Spengler in which we are at the end of the third age, much like Lord of the Rings, with each age lasting a little bit over 2,000 years. The first cycle, that we know of at least, started with the rise of the River Valley civilizations in 3000 BC and ended with the Bronze Age collapse in the 12th century BC. The second cycle, which formed out of the rubble of that dark age, involved the Indian, Chinese, Greco-Roman, Persian, Jewish, and Phoenician civilizations. These are the Axial Age civilizations, concentrated around 40 degrees north, and they fell apart with the collapse around the time of the fall of Rome, or the Han Dynasty. Finally, the third cycle is the West, Orthodox, Islam, Japan, and Southeast Asian civilization, in which they formed in the Dark Ages, while they'll probably get wiped out by mouse utopia or nuclear war or genetically engineered diseases. I don't know, man. In the end of the first cycle, Judaism formed as a reaction to the degeneracy of the Bronze Age world, as we spoke about before. In the second cycle, the Jews formed Christianity as a reaction to the issues with the decaying classical civilization. People might be triggered by me saying this, but the Jews invented Christianity because it's obviously true. Christ was ethnically Jewish, as were all the apostles, and they worshipped the Jewish God through a Jewish religious structure. Christ saw himself as repairing Judaism to return it to its old roots, which had been forgotten. The majority of the Jewish community rejected Christianity, but Christianity is an extension of Judaism in one form or another. Watch the video I made explaining early Christianity or classical civilization if you're interested, but Christianity was a rejection of the brutality of the Greco-Roman classical civilization. At the same time, Christianity is theologically as indebted to the Greeks as it is to Judaism.
I swear,
Since so much of Christianity is from Greek philosophic or religious concepts. The biggest demographic for developing Christianity were Greek-speaking diaspora Jews. In a society in which 1/4 of the population were slaves, without legal rights, where men were slaughtered in the gladiatorial games for entertainment, and where Rome held the world under its boot, Christianity stood for universal love, a society based off morality and not extraction. Christianity ultimately destroyed the classical world, replacing it, so the Romans were right to fear the Christians and see them as dangerous radicals. There were a huge amount of Jews in the Arabian Peninsula at the time of the Prophet Muhammad, and Muhammad was a merchant, so he dealt with a lot of Jews. And if you look at the theological structure of Islam, it's closer to Judaism than it is to Christianity, since they were both developed by Semitic herder peoples. And there was a lot of cross-mixing between Jews and Muslims in the first few centuries because they had mutual respect for the others. So, on top of this, as Islam worships Yahweh, or the God of Abraham, out of the three largest religions in the world, Islam, Christianity, and Marxism, they all ultimately stem from Judaism. Meanwhile, for the third cycle, the one which is operating today, the Jews invented Marxism, which is to our society what Christianity was to the classical world. Although I'm not insinuating that Marxism and Christianity are equally virtuous, the Jews have a tendency of making cultural movements greater than they themselves.
I have no idea. I'm completely gone. This is obviously all fucking like... I don't even know if it's even racism at this point. I think it's... I mean, I guess it's all history. It's fan fiction, right? But what in the fuck is this guy talking about? Like, ever. What is he talking about?
Hope you enjoyed your time on the